Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about something that I don't usually like to talk about, and that is like political ideas or religious ideas. It's just not what my channel's about. But today I thought I wanted to discuss something that has been on my mind for a while, and that's science and Christianity and how the two intertwine, and some problems that I have with the mixing of the two. Um, Now, just for a little bit of background, I am a Christian myself, although my beliefs are a little different from what is common seen with the rhetoric of many Christians today. The reason, the catalyst for this video is actually a, a sermon that I heard today at this church I went to. I'm down here in Connecticut with my girlfriend, and I went to her grandparents' church. There was a lecture or a sermon given, and I just did not agree with it. Now, I want to give the background because this is important. I want to give a personal anecdote to make the context of this video make more sense. Now, there's a rhetoric among a lot of churches, and it's not all churches, but some of them are very against ideas of science, evolution, that kind of thing. Mainly evolution, that God created us to be specific, and He only created us. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with a belief in this, but to say this as a truth instead of I believe kind of statements, like if the pastor would have said, I believe that we were created, I believe the words he said, if I'm not mistaken, was, um, I don't believe, and you shouldn't believe that evolution occurred because evolution says it made us by a mistake. And that to me just really irked me because I don't think that God's creation of the universe was really a mistake, right? Our existence isn't a mistake, as we'll discuss later. And some of the rhetoric he was pushing to the audience was just not something I agreed with. Now, without further ado, I want to get into this, but that's just a little bit of context. So, consensus of Christians with popular scientific ideas. Most of their rhetoric is okay. They'll agree with physical law. Most of them, they'll agree with law of space, right? That the Earth space is mostly infinite, and that the Earth is round, right? Unless there's a few people who believe the Earth is flat, which has been proven false. Not proven, but highly supported to be a false idea. Uh, but most of the rhetoric's okay among most. But a common two things that I see, especially with young Earth creationists, is that evolution is false and the Earth was created by a God 2,000 some years ago. Now, why I am accepting of people's beliefs and opinions, I don't think that it's fair to state these ideas as facts. Now, nothing in science is told as a fact, but I think that there are some things that are um, provable beyond a significant amount. And if there's proof for something, it outweighs other things. And we'll see with evolution, there's more evidence to say that evolution occurred than it not occurring. And that Earth was created by God 2,000 years ago. Well, there's more evidence to the contrary, which we'll see in a second. These ideas just, it unsettles me that this is pushed as fact, because um, it's not really fact. You don't have any evidence to support your idea. Now, if you personally believe these ideas, there's nothing wrong with that, but just I don't think that it's fair to push that onto someone and say this is fact, especially young minds, because they're very susceptible to the what you tell them. And there was a lot of younger kids there, and that's something that didn't sit well with me, because um, you need to present evidence on both sides. You can't just do it on one side. That's why I'm a Christian myself. I've seen evidence that I believe to be um, believed to be true, And there's some stuff that I don't believe to be true, and that's just based on your own personal experiences. But again, don't push the rhetoric if it's not something that you can back up as a truth. Um, I also want to point out that people will cite the Bible, and I believe that the Bible is a good tool for Christians. It is a testimony to the life that Jesus lived 2,000 years or so ago. It's an important book. It speaks about these things that Jesus went through and did in his life, and it's a good documentation. There's like in the New Testament, there's many chapters that repeat some ideas that kind of correlate to, okay, this is something that probably happened because it's many books, individual books that were written, compiled together to form this one book, which is the Bible. Now, um, you have to understand that the book of the Bible was written by people who did not understand ideas of physics, chemistry, biology, any of these things. Completely not even known at that point. They didn't even know what atoms were, elements were. None of this stuff was known, just let alone evolution, geology, fossil records. These things weren't known. It was what I believe the Bible to be is the best representation for the time that they had. Now, I'm not saying I don't believe in the Bible. I just think that it's an attempt by the people from way back then to document their beliefs, especially the Old Testament, which is where a lot of this contradictory evidence, the biggest problems of the Bible, in my opinion, are in the initial chapters like Genesis, the creation of the earth, right? It's a metaphor written by someone. Someone had to write that, put it into the initial Hebrew text, which was then translated a couple times. Now, we'll get into why I believe this rhetoric to be not as good as others. That will describe by science, and that's the beauty of science. For religious people, I think that science shows you ideas that will guide you to how to believe that God did things, right? Now, I want to speak about my beliefs here and make it very, very clear. Actually, we'll get to that at the end, but let's just move on from here. I think I've said enough about my beliefs with what the Bible represents. But okay, so for the first statement that evolution isn't real, evolution didn't happen. This pastor that I was listening to, he said, um, I I refuse to believe evolution made me by mistake. God made me. Now, the way that I believe things happened was God made the Big Bang. He allowed physical law to happen, and that allowed things to then spiral into life as we know it. And then he sent Jesus, his only son, to be a representation of humans, to be like, this is how far my creation has gone. I'm going to put a little bit of something in the world to show that this really did happen. But to say evolution isn't real, no, evolution does happen. We can actually observe evolution in our everyday lives. Now, uh, if you were born in the 20s, you'd be pretty old by now, but there was in the Industrial Revolution, um, there were these moths, and this I believe was in Britain when they had their Industrial Revolution. There were these white moths, and they would sit on these birch trees, and then this factory, this coal factory, I believe it was a coal factory, it started puffing out this black smoke that coated the trees in a black dye. So it turned these white birch trees into darkened, soot-filled trees, and it made the white moths really stick out to birds, and this caused over generations and quite quickly for the moths that were darker, which would thus blend in, to survive more and therefore reproduce. It's just a simple idea. You can mathematically show this. There's even a thing online where you can physically interact and see this evolution occur by your own eyes, right? Because you're the bird and you're showing the selection for the dark moths here. Now, if that doesn't make sense, let's use a more normal virus with COVID. You've probably heard in the news when COVID was a thing or a bigger thing, all the variants that came out and people were getting sick that had the vaccine. So if you have the vaccine, you are safe from a lot of strains of coronavirus. But notice how you get updates and booster shots. There's a reason for that. Original COVID, the original COVID virus species, killed millions of people. Then we made a vaccine that made it so those receptor proteins that bind to our cells no longer work. Our immune system can now detect coronavirus and get rid of it. So, what happens is you get a bottleneck. COVID is going to evolve to counteract that. And this isn't like COVID's conspiring to do this. No, the COVID just the species of COVID. If you have 100 COVID virus modules together, and you mutate one of them by some sort of mutation to change the way that the receptor binds, will now or just be resistant in some way to the vaccine that you gave, where your immune systems can no longer recognize coronavirus. It's its own new species. It's still coronavirus, just a different species. That's evolution on a very simple level. The variant evolution of COVID. It's going to change itself over time, therefore change the way it binds, and therefore be able to infect people. And that's why you don't hear of the original COVID virus being as deadly as the variants. The variants are a lot more deadly, and that's why you need to get booster shots. So I hope that idea is very clear. We can see evolution happening, uh, especially with like microorganisms, bacteria, especially like in a lab. You can make it. There's a video by a research university where they show this bacteria. They have different levels of antibiotics of different concentrations. So they have a strong, more strong, stronger, strongest, right, by a logarithmic factor of 10. So, and you'll see over time the bacteria can get resistant to that antibiotic. That's another idea of evolution. So we see evolution happen in real life, but it tends to be a slow process. Like you think, okay, well, that's bacteria, but what about these huge organisms? That's a little different. These are adaptations that happened over millions and millions, even billions of years from our initial common ancestor. Now, uh, it's a little hard to visualize these changes because it's like, oh, how can there be a selection factor that's going to make us humans from chimps, right? That's just a common idea, but you have to understand it's many changes based on many selection factors happening at different times over a very long time. And this is going to lead me into my second idea, that God created the earth 2,000 years ago. You can't have evolution on an earth that's only 2,000 years. If you look here, this is a fossil record visualization starting where Earth formed 4.6 billion years ago, right? And this is shown by the fossil record. Now, depending on relative depth, we can determine how old a fossil really is. Like the Cambrian explosion happened 500 million years ago, and that's when aquatic life really took off, and we had trilobites, and I'm trying to think of other ones. Anomalocaris, I think it's how you say that. Um, and then those simple aquatic creatures began to prey on each other, which really drove evolution. And notice, from the earth being formed 4.6 billion years ago, even to get to these simple aquatic creatures, it took 4 billion years to get there, just because of how hard it was to get it over that initial curve of that challenge of creating life and then evolving life, right? Um, but you can see, like in the Devonian, we have fish beginning to form and uh, all these awesome creatures. Then we get into the uh, Mesozoic period. That's where like the dinosaurs come in. Creatures get big. Oxygen concentration goes up on land, so land creatures get bigger. And then there's that extinction event, and we can see this in the fossil record. It's just at this point, and in their species we don't have on Earth anymore. How could that be? The Earth has to be more than 2,000 years old. It's not a fact. I'm not going to say it's a fact, but it is very, very heavily supported, more so than the book of Genesis in that case. Like, if you take the Bible as a truth and you just put your faith in it, that's fine. But if you are going to push a rhetoric that this is wrong, you need to understand that the evidence is greater for this idea than it is for the book of Genesis. Now, you're or sorry, let's this is the rhetoric I think should be accepted. Just as a little recap here, um, I think this is something that as we move into a better understanding, if we all shared this common idea, we could better understand God and Jesus and all these ideas that the book of the Bible is trying to portray to us. Remember, this was a book written by people thousands of years ago. They didn't understand science, and therefore it's not the best interpretation of our God. Now, I think that God created the universe. Quarks, which is the very fundamental ideas of matter, right? Quarks build um, the proton, the neutron, the electron, photons, and all that stuff. Physical law, I also think he created strong, weak, electromagnetic gravity. These forces were all one during the Big Bang, and they all split off. If you believe in the Big Bang. Now, I don't. I think that God made them individually, but allowed the Big Bang to make them all as one, and then he let them all split off. Now, I believe he also made energy. That idea, he put a fundamental amount of energy in, and it's it. He allowed it from time equals zero to now. For all this stuff to kind of formulate in a soup kind of thing. God allowed these things to accumulate to form the earth by natural means. If you understand um, astronomy, you know that the universe is really, really, really big, and there are trillions of stars out there. There trillions of stars and planetary objects and bodies in space. We are just a little dot in the middle of nowhere, but I think there's some real significance to that. God allowed life to arise by abiogenesis. This is the idea that you start from non-life and you get to life. I don't think that God represents a human being. I think he represents something that we don't understand. And he allowed life to arise by a non-living origin. I also think that evolution made the human species. So, from the very early, most simple cells over that 4.6 billion years from abiogenesis, evolution made the human species over that 4.6 billion years. I think that God saw something in human beings, this innate understanding as a species to understand the entire universe. So therefore, he sent his only son, Jesus, by a miracle to show the world of his existence. I think this is a pretty fair rhetoric. There's only one thing that a lot of atheists would not agree with. That is, God sent his only son, Jesus. But I think in the grand scheme of things, it kind of, everything is sealed, right? The bricks are sealed by the mortar here. The Big Bang can't be explained mathematically because gravity math and the strong, weak electromagnetic math just don't combine. Um, but yeah, basically, this is the main idea in order of how I think God made the universe. So people always ask me, well, why do you believe in God? And that's because, well, the Big Bang isn't really well explained. Um, it's really defined most simply as a dot of indefinite mass and energy expanded into the universe as we know it. I think that this is unsatisfactory to someone who wants to know what happened, despite any evidence that would say otherwise, like the cosmic microwave background. That's good evidence to say the Big Bang. But it can also be explained with God creating the universe, creating that Big Bang, right? But kind of to sum things up, I just want the big takeaway of this video to be that wherever you fall on the spectrum that is Christianity, young earth creationist, all the way to borderline atheist, which, to be honest, is kind of where I am. Although I do, as you're a Christian as long as you believe that Jesus was sent by God, his only son, to die for our sins. I think that that is just something every Christian has to believe in. Otherwise, you're not Christian. I think that's just a hard truth, right? Um, but yeah, I just get tired of some of the rhetoric that is pushed, and I think that needs to be explained um, more thoroughly. And I thought this video would help with that. If you guys have any questions, please put them in the comments. I would love to have a conversation. Please try and keep things respectful. I respect everyone's beliefs, so please respect mine. I will be happy to have a nice conversation if you have any questions. But other than that, have a wonderful day. Bye bye.